everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Justine. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I am going to show you guys 5 different dinner recipes that you can make. I just went online and I found 5 different recipes that I wanted to try, and I have a couple of things that I wanted to make like on the side to go with them. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. So let me take you into the kitchen and we will make our first meal.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to be making today are Italian sloppy joes. And this is all the stuff that you're going to need to make your sloppy joes. Some hamburger buns, molasses, balsamic vinegar, oregano, tomato paste, salt, some minced garlic, and then you're going to need half a pound of ground turkey, Italian seasoned. And then I buy my hamburger in bulk, so I had to just pull some out of the freezer, and I'm going to use half of that. You're going to need red pepper, but I couldn't find any red pepper at the store, so we're going to be using what I could find, which are, these 3 little orange peppers, 3 celery stalks, and half an onion. So I will walk you through all the measurements and stuff. When I was meal planning, I was trying to come up with stuff that was easy to find at the store right now, or stuff that we already had on hand and everything. So most of this I had already, put away. I just had to get some bread and some meat and some veggies and stuff. But let's get started cooking, and we will go from there. Okay, so once you have all your vegetables chopped up here, we're going to saute them in the pan, and I'm going to put a little bit of avocado oil in here. So we're going to saute the vegetables. And then over in our other pan here, this is where I'm going to be browning the half a pound of turkey and 1 pound of ground beef. We're going to cook the vegetables for a couple of minutes until they're nice and soft, and then we're going to cook the meat until it's done. Okay, so once your vegetables are all sauteed and soft and tender, they should look like this. And then I have my ground beef and my ground turkey here. So I browned it, and then I drained the extra fat off here as well. And what I guess I should have said earlier is that if you can't find Italian seasoned ground turkey, if you can find just regular ground turkey, you can always season it that way too. I just couldn't find regular turkey, so it actually worked out that they had the Italian seasoned one, because that was the one that I needed. But I wasn't too concerned about it, because I was like, oh, I can always season it if I can just find the plain one. And then, so what we're gonna do is we're going to add the meat to the vegetables, because now we're going to cook everything together. So we'll put that to the side. And then we're going to add the remainder of our ingredients. So you're going to add 1 cup of water. And then the rest of the ingredients are in here, so I'm going to tell you what you need. So for the remainder of the ingredients, you're going to need 1 can of tomato paste, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of molasses, 1 teaspoon of dry oregano, and then you're going to need half a teaspoon of salt. So that's all in here. So we're going to add this to our mixture. So we're going to scrape all this in there, and then we're going to cook this on low for about 12 minutes. So, and while this is cooking, we're going to get started on making the macaroni and cheese. So I'm just going to stir this to combine it, and then I'm going to turn it down to low.
And then while it cooks and simmers, and we're gonna make some macaroni.
Okay, and for the macaroni and cheese, you're going to need some macaroni noodles or whatever kind of noodles you want to use, butter, eggs, salt, onion powder, milk, evaporated milk, and then some shredded cheddar cheese or whatever kind of cheese you would like to use. So these are the ingredients, so let's start putting them all together. Okay, so I have my big pan here on the stove, and I'm going to double this recipe because my family loves macaroni and cheese. So I'm going to use the whole pound of macaroni noodles. And then the recipe calls for 4 eggs. Now you're going to put your evaporated milk in, which calls for the whole can. And I'll go over the measurements again too, just so that you guys have them if you guys want to make it yourselves. And then we have our melted butter here. So dump that out. The one thing I do really like about this recipe so far that I was reading about is that you just dump everything in the pan here, so that's awesome. Then you put in your regular milk. Then we need to measure out our onion powder and our salt. Okay, since I'm gonna do this, I'm doubling it, so it calls for a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna put 2 in because I'm doubling it. And then for the onion powder, it calls for half a teaspoon, so we're going to use 1. Okay. And then you mix this all together and you just let it cook until the noodles are almost done, and then you put in your cheese, and then you cook your cheese and your noodles together until the noodles are completely cooked. And that is all. I mean, that's the one thing when I was reading this recipe, I loved it because you just dump everything in one pan here, you cook it all together, and so that's awesome. Makes less dishes. Okay, so if you want to make this recipe at home, I'll give you the measurements for 1 batch. You're going to need a half a pound of uncooked macaroni, or like I said, whatever kind of noodles you have at home or what you can find at the store. You're going to need 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, 1.5 cups of whole milk, 2%, 1% or fat-free, 2 large eggs, half a stick or 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter melted, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of onion powder, 12 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese grated, and then 8 ounces of Swiss cheese grated. So, but I'm just going to use cheddar because my kids love cheddar cheese. So you just put all that in your pot here and you cook it up until, like I said, the noodles are almost done. Then we're going to throw the cheese in, cook it for a couple more minutes until the noodles are completely done and the cheese is melted. So I will bring you back and show you what that looks like when we get to that point. Okay, so here is the macaroni and cheese, and it smells so good. So I ended up cooking it on medium-low heat for about 15 to 20 minutes, and now it's going to sit for about 5 minutes before we plate it so that it has time to absorb some more of that moisture and everything. But oh my goodness, I wish you guys could smell it. It smells so good. And then we have the sloppy joe mix back here. As you can see, it's been simmering while the macaroni has been cooking, so it is done and ready to go. So I'm going to plate this up here so we can do a taste test. Okay, so I plated up the macaroni and cheese and then the Italian sloppy joe right here. So let's taste the macaroni. I'm gonna go for another bite. That was good. I really like that one. That tastes so good. And then for my sloppy joe, I did take the hamburger bun and I toasted it in my toaster for just a minute or two, just to crisp it up a little bit so that when I put the meat in it, it didn't get super soggy. So here is the Italian sloppy joe. I can taste the molasses in it. It has a little bit of that sweetness to it. So it is a little bit different because it does have vegetables in it. Normally a traditional sloppy joe does not have vegetables in it, but it's not bad. I do like it.
So I'm gonna say both of these recipes are a winner. I do like both of these. So, all right, well, let's try and see if the kids like them or not.
Okay, so Sasha is our brave taste tester today, and she's gonna taste the sloppy joe and then the macaroni. Okay, Sasha, go ahead.
You want this one? Here, you can have this one. This one.
I don't have anything.
That Gidget wants in? Okay, no, go ahead, finish. Do you like the sloppy joe?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big bite of macaroni. Take a small bite, girl. There you go. Ooh, okay. Do you like them? There you go. Kid approved.
So today's recipe, we are going to be testing out the Navajo tacos. So I have all the ingredients here that you're going to need. So we're going to need some garlic powder, some paprika, black pepper, chili powder, cumin, crushed red pepper, some salt, some avocado oil or whatever kind of oil you want to use, some petite diced tomatoes with green chilies in them, or you can use plain, it's completely up to you, kidney beans, black olives, some guacamole, baking powder, some cheese for the top, some flour, coconut oil, that's the oil that I'm going to use to fry the tacos in, some salsa, a pound of ground beef, and then your toppings, so whatever you want to go on top, like tomatoes, I have a pepper, an onion, and some lettuce. So now that I've showed you all the ingredients, let's start by washing and chopping up our vegetables.
Okay, so now we're gonna start working on the tacos, and so I have all my dry ingredients in here. So for the dry ingredients, you're going to need 2 cups of flour, 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of warm water. So I have all the dry ingredients in here, and I'm gonna mix those until they're combined. And then I'm going to add the water. All right. And then we're gonna mix this until a dough forms. So I guess I should have said at the beginning of my video here that Navajo tacos are different from traditional tacos. So it's not a tortilla that we're making. We're making kind of like a fried bread that they're going to sit on. They look really good and they had really good reviews online. So I wanted to try making them. So we will test it out and see how this goes. So yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to explain that we are not using tortillas for these tacos. We're going to be making a dough. So then after you mix it all together, you have your dough like this here. And then we're going to let this sit while we brown our hamburger. That's the next step that we're going to do. And I'm also going to warm up the coconut oil that we're going to fry this in. So let's go to the stove and we will do that. So now we're going to saute the onions. So we're going to put a little bit of avocado oil in your pan that has been preheating over medium-high heat here. Add a little bit of oil to that. Toss your onions in. And then we're going to saute these for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then after 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to add in our pound of ground beef. And we're going to cook that until it's no longer pink. So, and once the hamburger is done cooking, then we're going to add in all of our spices and our beans and stuff. So that'll be the next step here. So once your meat is all nice and browned and fully cooked, then you were supposed to put in the rest of the ingredients. What I didn't realize is I didn't pick the right size pan. So if I put all my other stuff in there, this pan is going to be too small. So I'm actually going to switch to a bigger pan. So I'm going to put my pan over here and we're going to put the hamburger and the onions in here. So we're just going to switch. So just note to self, when you make this recipe, make sure you put your meat in a bigger pan. And then I'm just gonna pop this back here for right now because it's really hot. Then you add in your diced tomatoes. And then your can of kidney beans that are rinsed. So make sure you drain and rinse those. We're gonna put the beans in there. And now we're gonna add in all the seasonings. So I have the measurements right here because I couldn't remember all the seasonings, but I put them all in this little bowl here. And you're going to need, okay, 1 teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/8 teaspoon of red pepper. So those are all the seasonings that you need, and then we're just gonna add those into this bowl here. Okay, and then once you add the remainder of your ingredients, you are to simmer this for 10 minutes. So while this is simmering and cooking down, we're going to start working on our tacos. So I have my pot over here. It's got the coconut oil in it and it's nice and warm. So I'm going to show you how to make the tacos next. Okay, so now we're going to make the tacos. So I'm going to take a little bit of flour. I'm going to put it right here on my counter. And the recipe says this is going to make about 8 tacos. I'm actually going to put some flour on my hands too because this dough is sticky. Throw some flour all over. So it says to rip off 8 golf ball size pieces. And then you want to flatten them out like little pizzas. So you want it to look like this. And then we're going to put it in the oil and we're going to fry it until it is golden brown on both sides.
Okay, so this is what the finished product looks like, and I topped mine with pretty much everything. So I took the taco and then put some sour cream on it, and the bean mixture, and some tomatoes, and some olives, and some peppers, lettuce, guacamole, some cheese. I like everything on my tacos, so I'm not super picky, but I am really excited to try this out and see how it tastes.
All right, so now let's taste it. I was gonna say, I really like it. It's different because I'm used to a tortilla instead of like a bread dough, but it's got good flavor and everything like that. So I'm gonna give this a thumbs up. So I'm gonna give it to my kids and that'll be the real test.
Okay, so today we're going to be making pineapple chicken and rice. So this is everything that you're going to need. You're going to need 2 cups of water, a pound of chicken breasts, some olive oil, some thyme, some black pepper, some honey or agave. We have cornstarch, pineapple. You can use pineapple slices, pineapple chunks. I have pineapple slices, so that's what I'm going to use. Some Dijon mustard, some salt, 1 cup of rice, and I put it in my rice colander here, and we're going to rinse it. And then we have a tablespoon of butter to go with the rice. So I have 2 cups of water here that I'm going to bring to a boil on the stove. And once it comes to a boil, we're going to add the rice and then the tablespoon of butter. And then I'm going to pound out my chicken here with my handy dandy little meat tenderizer here. So I'm going to pound it out, season it with the pepper and the thyme, and then we're going to put that on the stove and brown it on each side for about 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, so I have my chicken here, which I'm going to pound out and clean up if I need to, you know, so I have my knife here if I need to trim anything off, but I'm going to pound it out on each side, and then I'm going to salt and pepper it and put thyme on it. And I did, on the stove, I have my pan over there with a little bit of olive oil in it, and it's warming up. I put my 2 cups of water on the stove with the tablespoon of butter, and it is boiling right now. And before that, I did rinse my rice. You do want to rinse your rice in your rice colander or in your colander, however you want to rinse it, until the water runs clear. It's very important to do that. I actually didn't know how important that was until I did some research, because I was having some problems getting my rice to come out just right. So once you have your rice cleaned and your water boiling, so we're going to put these 2 together. Let me grab a spatula. I'm going to scrape this into here. I found this really cool rice colander on Amazon. It works so much better than the method that I was doing before. Before, I was just using a measuring cup in my hand and it made a huge mess, and it's not something that I would recommend. And I did some research and I found this online, and it just makes a world of difference, the rice colander, if that's something that you would like to purchase. So now that we have the rice in the water, you want to bring it back to a boil. Put in a pinch of salt. I'm just going to shake a little in there. So you want to bring this back to a boil. I need my lid. So, and then once you bring it back to a boil, you want to put the lid on, turn it down to low, and then you're going to cook it for 20 minutes. And you don't want to remove the lid. It's very important to keep the steam in there. So now we have our pan that's warming up. So now let's get our chicken ready so that we can put that in the pan and get the chicken cooking. So I opened up my can of pineapple slices and I took the pineapple slices out and then I poured the juice into a container. So you're going to need to put 1/4 cup of the juice in a container with 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. And we're going to whisk this together. And then we're going to set this aside. So we're going to set that aside. Then you're going to take the remainder of your pineapple juice and put it in a bowl with 1/4 cup of your Dijon mustard. And then 1/4 cup of your honey or agave, whichever one you choose to use. And then we're going to mix this together. And then we're going to put this on the stove and simmer it on medium to low heat for 15 minutes. So I'm going to be using the same pan that I cooked the chicken in. I cooked the chicken for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side, and then I popped it into the oven here at 350 degrees, just in a 9x13 pan, just to finish cooking it through and also to keep it warm while the rice was finishing cooking and while we made the sauce. So I have this on medium to low heat. I'm going to put the sauce in here, and then we're supposed to bring it to a simmer. And then once it's simmering, put a lid on and then cook it for 15 minutes. Okay, so now that this sauce has simmered for 15 minutes, now you're going to add the pineapple and cornstarch into this, and then you're going to whisk this up and then allow this to cook for 2 minutes.
And then we're gonna add the chicken and the pineapple in. This is just gonna thicken the sauce a little bit more. So I'm gonna turn my heat up just a little bit. It's already starting to thicken up, I can see. All right, now my sauce is cooked for 2 minutes. Now I'm gonna put the chicken back into the sauce here. And we're gonna let the chicken get this sauce all over it. You wanna flip your chicken too because you wanna coat the chicken with the sauce here. One more right here. One more I'm gonna flip. Turn my pan around there. All right, and then we're gonna add the pineapple here on. Okay. And turn it down to low. And you're just gonna let this cook for another 2 to 3 minutes. Enough that it just heats up the pineapple. So, and my rice is done. So once this is done cooking, we are gonna plate and we're gonna taste test it. Okay, so here is the pineapple chicken. It's all done and ready to go. And then here is the rice right here. So let's plate these up and then we're going to taste it. So here I have it all plated up. So let's take a bite and see how it tastes here. It smells really good. I'm going to take a piece of the chicken, the pineapple, and the rice. I like it. I was going to say, I like the crust on the chicken. The crust is just amazing. It's really nice and crisp around the edges and everything. I wish that the sauce was not so thick that it would cover more of the rice. That's probably my only complaint about it, is that the sauce is really thick. But other than that, it is really, really good. So let's present it to the real judges and see what they say. Okay, Sasha and Grace, taste it and tell me what you think.
It's sweet.
You like it? Giving it a thumbs up?
I like the taste of the sauce.
So today we're going to be making everybody's favorite pizza. So we're going to make some homemade pizza dough and some homemade pizza sauce. These are the ingredients you're going to need for the pizza dough. So we're going to need some agave, some garlic powder, onion powder, yeast, salt, olive oil, warm water, and flour. All right, so let's make the dough because that's going to take some time to rise, and then while that's rising, we will make the pizza sauce. Okay, so I have my KitchenAid ready to go here, and I have the dough hook attached. So the first thing we're going to do is activate the yeast. So we're going to put our 2 cups of warm water in the mixer, a tablespoon of yeast, and then a 1/4 cup of your honey. So we're going to put this in here, and then we're going to mix it for 30 seconds until it's well combined. And then after it's well combined, you're going to let it sit for 10 minutes so it can do its thing, and we will check back in 10 minutes. So after about 10 minutes, this is what your yeast should look like. It should be all nice and bubbly. This means that it is ready to go. So let's add the rest of the ingredients and get this mixed up. So now we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So you're going to need 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder and 1/4 teaspoon of your garlic powder, and then 1 tablespoon of salt. And then we're going to add 5 cups of flour. And I'm going to do this a little bit at a time and mix it slowly. So you're going to put in 5 cups of flour and then mix it. And once everything is well combined, you're going to knead it for 7 minutes. So once you have all of your flour in there and it starts to stick to the hook here, you know you have enough. If it's still sticking to the sides of the bowl, you can add a 1/2 cup at a time until it starts to stick to the hook. Once it sticks to the hook, you just want to keep it going for 7 minutes, and once 7 minutes is over, then we'll take it out and we will let it rest. now the dough has kneaded for 7 minutes. So now I'm going to pull it out, and I have 2 bowls that I've greased with some cooking spray. And then I have 2 sheets of plastic wrap that I put some cooking spray on as well, because we're going to divide this dough in half and put half of it in each bowl, and then we're going to cover it, and then we're going to let it rise until it's double its size. So let's see if we can get this out. It looks like it's not too sticky. Because I was going to say, do I need to get some flour? So here, I'm going to pull this off the hook here. I think I'm going to take that out just because it'll make it easier. I wish you guys could smell this. I can really smell the garlic powder in here. That is, but I love garlic, so I'm not going to complain about that at all. Okay, so here, let me divide this in half here, and I'm going to put half in this bowl and then half in this bowl. And then I'm going to cover it with the plastic wrap. So here, let me do this. Let me slide that out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take my plastic wrap. And then if you have somewhere warm in your house to help these rise faster, you know, like you can put them on your stove or something, that, you know, then it won't take as long. It just depends on how warm your house is. Okay. Cover each of these bowls here. All right, and now we're going to let these sit here for about 45 minutes or until they are double in size. Okay, so now we're going to make the pizza sauce. So the ingredients you're going to need are sugar, basil, black pepper, oregano, bay leaf, butter, onion, celery, Parmesan cheese, minced garlic, tomato paste, diced tomatoes, and then some olive oil. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wash and dice up our vegetables, and we will go from there. Okay, so now you're going to need a medium saucepan, and you're going to need to turn your stove on to medium high, and then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then once the butter is melted, we're going to add in, sorry about that. Once the butter is melted, we're going to add in the celery and the onion, and we're going to saute those for just a couple of minutes until they start to soften. So my butter is almost melted here. Okay, now my butter is all melted, so now I'm going to add in my veggies. And we're going to saute these for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then once the onions start to brown, we're going to add in half a teaspoon of garlic here. And then we're going to cook that for another 1 to 2 minutes. And then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So now that our onions and celery and the garlic have sauteed for a few minutes, they should look like this. You can see that there. Okay. And then we're going to add that into a blender. So we're going to take our onion, celery, garlic mixture here. So we're going to put that into the blender. And then we're going to put in your can of diced tomatoes. All right. And then 1 can of tomato paste. I find tomato paste to be kind of a pain to get it all out of the can. I don't know, maybe maybe it's just me. But I found like using like a butter knife, I can do a pretty good job and get most of it out. Okay. And then for your seasonings here, you're going to need 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, a teaspoon of basil, a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of sugar, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And then we're going to add all of that. Oh, it's sticking to the bottom. I'm going to use my knife here to loosen that up. All right. And then we're just supposed to puree this until it is smooth. So
So once you're done pureeing your sauce, we're going to return it to the pan here and we're going to bring it back to a boil. So it needs to be at medium-high heat. And once we bring it to a boil, then we're going to turn it down to a simmer and we're going to let it simmer for 30 minutes. So I'm going to return my sauce here to the pan. It is not going to pour out. It is thicker than I thought it was going to be. So here, let me use my spoon here. And you can puree this as much or as little as you want. If you like chunkier sauce or if you want it to be smoother, that's completely up to you. I don't mind a semi-chunky sauce, so I'm actually going to leave it the way that it is. All right, so let's put this in the pan here. And look at that, it's already starting to boil. All right, so I'm gonna call that good because it's already starting to bubble up there on the edges. So I'm gonna turn it down to low. I'm gonna set my timer here for 30 minutes and I will check back with you after 30 minutes and I will show you the sauce. So our pizza dough is ready to go here. It has doubled in size, so it is time for us to roll it out. So I've got my rolling pin here, I've got my flour, I have my 2 pizza pans that I'm gonna spray with some cooking spray. And then I'm just gonna do these one at a time. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little flour down, roll it out, put it on the pan, and then I'm gonna cook it for a few minutes. Then I'm gonna bring it out and I'm gonna put the sauce on it and then top it with our toppings. So that's what I'm gonna do next. So here is my pizza. So let's try it and see how it tastes. I like the sauce. The sauce is very tomatoey, which I like, and I also like that it's thick. And the dough is actually really nice. It's airy, so it's not too dense or anything like that. So I'm gonna give this a thumbs up. I like it.
Okay, so one of the things we're going to be making to go with dinner today is homemade bread. So this is what you're going to need for some homemade bread. You're going to need some flour, some salt, 1 egg, some yeast, some honey or agave, butter, and some milk. And then if you have a stand mixer, I have my stand mixer there in the back. But let's get these things measured out and let's start making some homemade bread.
So the first thing that you're going to need to do is take 2.5 cups of milk and you're going to need to put it in a microwave safe bowl. We're going to put our milk in here. And then it calls for 1/3 cup of honey and we're going to put that in the bowl as well. So put all your and then 1/4 cup of butter. And then we're going to put this in the microwave for about 45 seconds to a minute. It just depends on your microwave. And you want to do it until everything is warm but not hot.
So if you need to just do it for, 30-second increments or something, that's fine. But if you get it too warm, it says to just, let it sit on the counter until it becomes lukewarm. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave and I will be right back. So once you take that out of the microwave, everything should be melted and you're just trying to get it warm. You're not trying to get it hot. So if you did get it hot, just make sure you wait for it to cool down. So you're going to take your liquids here and you're going to add them to your mixer. And then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to add 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. 2.5. And then you're going to need 2 teaspoons of salt. So I can get the lid off here. Okay. And then you're going to need to add 1 egg beaten. Alright, and then we're going to add some flour. So here, let me grab a butter knife so we can get a better measurement here. So you can fill the measuring cup up here and scrape the extra off the top. So I'm going to put 3 cups of flour in here, and then I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add the last 2, because I feel like if I put all of them in here at once, it's just going to make a big, huge mess and everything. So we're going to just do a little bit at a time. So, but once you put all your flour in here and mix it up, you're going to let this knead for 6 minutes, and then we're going to put it in the bread pans and let it rise. So let's get that started. Okay, so I put in 7 cups of flour. I can't remember if I said in my clip earlier that you needed to put 5 to 7 cups of flour in. What you want the dough to do is you want it to start sticking to the center of your hook there. So it's going to take about 5 to 7 cups of flour. But once it starts to stick to the hook, then you can start kneading it for 6 minutes. So now that it's starting to stick to the center here, I'm going to turn up the speed here a little bit, and I'm going to set my timer for 6 minutes. And while this is doing its thing, I'm going to get my bread pans out and get those all greased up and ready so that when this is done, we can divide it into the bread pans and then let it rise. So now the bread dough is all done here. So now we're going to divide it up and put it in our 2 bread pans here. So I have my bread pans ready to go. I just put some coconut oil here in those. I'm going to put this out on the counter here. We're going to divide it in half. I'm going to knead it together just a little bit before I do that. Okay, stick it to my finger. Alright, so now we're going to tear this in half. Getting a little sticky. Put a little bit more flour on there. Alright, so now we're going to kind of make it into a bread shape here so that when it rises it fills up the pan evenly. Go. Try to fill up all the corners. Same thing with this one. Gonna roll it into like a log. Okay. Put that one in there. Okay, so they should look like this. And then I'm going to put some plastic wrap over the top of these, and I'm going to let them rise until they are double their size. And then we're going to put them in an oven that is preheated to 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. As you can see, our bread is huge now, and it is ready to go in the oven. So I preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and we're going to put it in there for 30 to 35 minutes. Alright, and while the bread is cooking, we're going to be making a chicken with garlic lemon sauce. So what you're going to need for this recipe is some minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of butter, lemon juice, chicken broth, some red pepper, black pepper, basil, parsley, salt, half and half, and a pound of chicken. and then 1 red onion. Okay, so now that we have the onion all diced up and the chicken has been pounded out and salted and peppered on each side, you're going to turn your pan on to a medium-high heat and then add a little bit of olive oil. And then we're going to swirl this around, get the bottom nice and coated. All right, and then we're going to cook the chicken just so that it's browned on each side, and then we're going to take it out and put it on a plate. So once your chicken is browned on both sides, it recommends that you put it in the oven to keep it warm while you're finishing your sauce. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I put it in a glass dish because I didn't know about putting my plate in the oven. So I'm just gonna put this glass dish right here in my oven to keep it nice and warm. And then we're going to turn this down to medium, and then you're going to take your onion and then your 1 cup of chicken broth, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then a dash of red pepper, and we're going to cook this all together. So once you have your sauce and your onions in here, you're supposed to cook this on medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes or until there is 1/3 of a cup of the sauce left here on the bottom. So we're going to be cooking this for a few minutes, just cooking this all down. It smells delicious, by the way. I'm excited to taste all of this. It's making me very, very hungry. Okay, so now that this is cooked down, now we're going to turn the heat down to low. You're going to add your 2 tablespoons of butter to this. Oh, after you get the piece of paper off that's still stuck on there. And then you're going to need a 1/4 cup of the half and half. And then you're going to put a little bit of basil in here and then a little bit of parsley. So we're just going to add a little bit to the sauce here. And then you're going to put your chicken in here, and then you're going to cook it for 5 to 8 minutes, it said, until your chicken is completely cooked through. So let's melt this butter. And then we'll add our chicken back in here and let it cook for about 5 more minutes, and then it should be ready to serve. There we go. That's all nice and melted. Mix that all up. All right, so let's put our chicken back in here. And this will also give the chicken time to marinate and cook inside this sauce here. But I do remember the recipe saying that you do not want this to boil. So they said cook it on a low heat because you just want it to simmer. All right. So there we go. So we're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes, and then we will be ready to plate. Okay, so here's the chicken. It is all done, and here is the bread. Doesn't it look so good, and it smells so good? So I have been letting the bread cool here for a few minutes just because you don't want to slice into it when it's nice and hot when it comes out of the oven, even though I know you really want to eat it because it's best when it first comes out of the oven. So that's been sitting there cooling, but I did butter the top. And this chicken here has been sitting here for a couple of minutes, so I'm going to plate this up now and we are going to taste test everything.
Okay, so here is the chicken, and then I took homemade bread and I put a little bit of butter on it. So let's try the chicken first. I like that actually. It has a little bit of a sweet yet tangy taste to it. It's really good. So now let's try our homemade bread here. My mom used to make the best homemade bread, so I'm kind of like on the mission to like replicate her recipe, because my mom's, she says she can't remember how she made it anymore. And I was like, what? Come on now. I like the crust. It's nice and crisp on the outside, but yet soft on the inside and everything. So yes, I want to say both of these are absolutely delicious. So now I want to see what my kids think of them.
It's good.
You like the chicken? Did you guys try the bread?
I gotta try this. I love the noodles. The bread's good.
All right, Sasha, you try your bread. Tell me what you think.
I like it.
Well, there you have it. It's kid approved.
Well, that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would love to have you guys here, and I will see you guys all soon with another video. So until next time, bye!